Hi, everyone. Welcome into DodgerHeads presented by DodgerBlue.com. My name is Matthew Moreno. I'm filling in as host, and I'm joined today by Blake Williams and Scott Geirman. And we're discussing the National League postseason bracket. And the Dodgers got a little bit more clarity last night, and we're recording this on Thursday, with the Atlanta Braves getting their walk-off win against the Chicago Cubs. That's going to guarantee the Braves the best record in the National League, regardless of what happens over these final few days of the season. And in turn, that locks the Dodgers into the number 2 seed. And it's kind of just the latest domino to fall since they clinched the National League West basically 2 weeks ago. Over the weekend, they secured a spot in the NLDS. There was still mathematically a chance for them to potentially catch the Braves and pass them in the standings. Blake, I'll come to you first. I know that wasn't necessarily all that likely, considering the distance between the Dodgers and the Braves in the standings. And so now that they're locked into the number 2 seed, what's your kind of reaction and view, outlook moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of what we all expected for a while now. The Braves have kind of been the clear top of the NL for the whole season, and the Dodgers were always trailing them. So it's just kind of what we expected here. So it doesn't change too much. I would say it's putting more of a focus on who they're going to play next. So it's going to be either the Brewers or one of the wild card teams. So to have some clarity there helps a bit. You can kind of start planning ahead for them. But we still have to find out who exactly they're going to play, and that's going to be a while now. So I don't think it changes like anything much yet, but we'll see who they end up playing.
Yeah, pardon with me here. I'm messing with the settings. There we go. Scott, in terms of, there was a lot of talk over the past, I would say, week to 10 days of, are the Dodgers maybe better off getting the number 2 seed instead of first? Because right now, and we'll get into, the wild card standings in a few minutes here. If you're the number 1 seed, which the Braves are at this point, you're looking at a scenario of playing either the Phillies or the Diamondbacks in the NLDS. And I know some fans were saying that's not a matchup the Dodgers would want. I think mainly if it were to be the Phillies. Did you fall in that bracket, or were you more of, just kind of keep playing and let the chips fall where they may?
Honestly, either way is a good one. Classic me. But I like the 2 seed spot. I really enjoyed the matchup there. I know the Milwaukee Brewers is a really tough matchup, but for a bit now, sure, you just want to get into the dance, get a ticket, and let the chips fall. But I like where the 2 seed's at. I like the matchup there. I feel like they have solid success against the Brewers, and then potentially the Cubs or the Marlins. I like where the Dodgers are positioned against them because with the Philadelphia Phillies, they're kind of, amongst the wild card teams. They're kind of the juggernaut of all of them, unless you have there's a strong case for the Brewers too. But I like where they're at with the 2 seed. I think it matches up really well for them. Anything but having to face, going between the Philadelphia Phillies and then having to face the Braves again, that would be the toughest, roadmap for me.
Yeah, that's a great point. I know, Blake, you're somebody who you were high on, the Phillies kind of outlook last season, even as they were struggling. Do you view them in the same regard this year as maybe, a potential dark horse team in October?
I think they're still really talented, but they've underperformed a bit this year. Their pitching hasn't been at that same level they were last year. And if Bryce Harper missed a lot of the year with the Tommy John surgery and came back, and he wasn't that same level of player. But they're still a good team, and it's the postseason where anyone can get hot and end up winning. And it doesn't really matter how good you are at that point. Just get hot, and we've seen teams in the past rely on guys like Eddie Rosario and Jorge Soler to win, and it's like that's not something you'd expect in the regular season. So
Yeah.
there's just so much randomness. It doesn't really matter who you play. It's what it is in the postseason.
All right, so let's get into some of the wild card standings and the update. As we've mentioned, the Brewers are locked into a wild card series by virtue of being a division winner, but the third best record amongst the Dodgers, Brewers, and Braves. And as of our recording Thursday morning, the Miami Marlins are in possession of the number 6 seed. So they would be playing the Brewers in the wild card series, and the Marlins hold a tiebreaker over the Cubs. They're currently tied in the standings. The edge goes to Miami. The Marlins also have a tiebreaker against the Reds, who are, I think, a couple games back, maybe a game and a half back. And they also have a tiebreaker against the Diamondbacks, but Arizona is currently 2 games ahead of them for the 5th seed. So for the purpose of this, let's kind of focus on the Marlins and Cubs. And Scott, I'll come back to you. Who do you see the Brewers ultimately playing in the NLDS?
The Cubs have it, but they've just kind of let it go through. I know that Seiya Suzuki had that fly ball could be, pivotal for them. It's the bullpen's blown 2 games for them. Defense has come up real short. So I want to say the Chicago Cubs, they're the ones that, will grab a hold of that in that last 6 seed spot to face the Brewers. You asked who the Dodgers will face after that round?
Not
or
yet.
just a 6
No,
seed.
no, not yet. Yeah,
Six
just the
seed.
6
I
seed.
think 6 seed. I still think it's going to be the Chicago Cubs. I think they'll find a way to make that happen there. The Arizona Diamondbacks, they've won 2 in a row here as of this morning. I still think the Cubs will find a way to do it. I just hope that their pitching doesn't blow it again. But I wouldn't have too much trouble facing the Marlins. The Cubs, on the other hand, something about belly magic coming back to face the Dodgers. I don't know, something wacky can happen. I'll pull the trick out of Blake's bucket hat that anything can happen.
Yeah, we might get some of Jeff's Beltober if the Dodgers end up playing the Cubs. Real quick, Blake, before I go to you, I think it's worth noting that, looking at the schedules for the Marlins and Cubs, it's interesting to see the Cubs have one more with the Braves Thursday night, and then they close out the season with facing the Brewers.
Yep.
Whereas the Marlins, they have one more with the Mets, and I believe then they play the Pittsburgh Pirates after that. So considering that, Blake, does that factor into who you think will end up making it to the NLDS to play the Brewers?
Yeah, I'd guess the Marlins make it just because they have the tiebreaker, so they have an advantage there already. Then with the easier schedule, like the Brewers have played really good baseball, and I'm sure we're going to get into them in a bit. But yeah, it's just an easier path for the Marlins. I think they might be a little less talented than the Cubs, but they just have the advantage right now.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you. I think having the tiebreaker and the strength of schedule being a little bit more in the Marlins' favor, I think will end up swaying things their way, and that invariably will sort of impact the Dodgers. And so now let's get into that really quick. And if it is, let's say it is, regardless of who you think, whether it's Marlins or Cubs that end up the number 6 seed, who do you see? And I mean, this might be an easy answer, I guess. Who do you see coming out of that World Wild Card Series matchup to then face the Dodgers in the NLDS? Blake, I'll start with you.
I see the Brewers coming out of it. Their pitching is just really good, and they've been clicking kind of on all cylinders recently. We've talked a lot about how their offense hasn't been great, but it's been better recently, so they just seem like a more complete team than the other 2 opponents.
Now, does it make a difference for you as to does your answer change whether it's the Marlins or the Cubs that the Brewers are going to be playing?
Not really. I see both the wild card teams as significantly worse, but I mean, like I've been saying, the postseason's just so random. It wouldn't shock me if either of them won. They only need to win 2 in that wild card round, but I still think the Brewers pull out of it.
All right, Scott, I'll turn it over to you now. Let's say, whether it's Brewers, Cubs, Brewers, Marlins, maybe the Reds somehow sneak in, maybe the Diamondbacks fall, whatever crazy scenario, who do you see the Dodgers playing in the NLDS?
I'm gonna, co-sign with Blake. I'm gonna say the Milwaukee Brewers. Pitching reigns supreme, and they have a lot of it. They can call on a number of arms out there, starters, relievers. Craig Counsell's one of the top managers in the National League and all of baseball, honestly. And he's been there. He knows how to make it happen. And to Blake's point, I feel like the wild card teams, not named the Brewers, the Cubs, Marlins, they're just significantly, more flawed than what the Dodgers or the Brewers have. It seems like the Dodgers, Brewers, Braves, these upper tier teams, they have a plan and how they deploy their roster. Kind of feels like the Cubs, Marlins, they're just, plodding to the end here, trying to just get it in and go that way. So I like to lean with, organizations that have a lot of a plan and more of a, foundation there with their team. So I think that the Milwaukee Brewers will figure that out and they pose the biggest threat. And I think that they're just kind of charge through it, but they're relying on a ton of, not relying, they're getting production from a lot of, different spots in their roster. Mark Canha's really figured it out. Josh Donaldson, they've found that power source that they didn't have in the first half, which is why I think they're 13 or 14 games above 500 in the second half. So they've played good baseball, and this last few weeks span, they've been subtly clicking. Craig Counsell spoke after they, clinched, and he said it's just the beginning for them. So we'll see. I mean, I feel like an eventual matchup in the DS is where we'll see.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you guys, kind of regardless of how the wild card picture ultimately takes shape. And we'll leave everybody with this. Dave Roberts was asked about the potential scenarios and who the Dodgers may end up seeing in the NLDS. And on Wednesday night after the Dodgers beat the Rockies, he said, quote, "I don't play that game too much. I think as a baseball fan, it's great to be going down to the wire. I do know we're locked into the number 2 seed. I just want to make sure we keep playing good baseball." And I don't think that's going to surprise anybody. The Dodgers have time year in year out every single season, their focus seems to be kind of internal, and I think that's the best approach. Focus on what you can take care of and how you're playing, and let the rest of the pieces fall however they may. That's going to do it for us. Thank you for watching. Again, please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, ring the notification bell, and let us know in the comments who maybe you think the Dodgers will play in the NLDS, how you see the wild card picture sort of taking shape, and we'll catch you guys next time. Thank you.